Alrighty, so this is going to be a lot shorter. Thank you for the previous presentations. My name is John. I've been working on a big project on the Upper West Side called Olmsted. I gave a 10-minute presentation last month, so if you guys are interested, you can go and watch that. I have a very abbreviated form here, literally just the first slide from that last presentation plus some progress that we've had since then. So this is a 400-unit building off of the BC 96th Street station on the Upper West Side. This is strategic for us because it enables us to have a fiber connection to the building and then a wireless link from that building up to Harlem, which is currently supported via a VPN. So this is very exciting. And in the process, we're gonna refine our technique for doing in-building fiber. This is, I think, the biggest building we've done so far, so we'll see how it goes. So in the past month, since the presentation, we did a little bit of work on the rooftop. We now have a server rack mounted up in an unused room underneath the elevator room, so there isn't as much of an issue with access control. That's all good to go. We also started drilling holes between that room and the outside that will run DC power and fiber through. Those will feed the antennas up on the rooftop, which we'll see soon. Before we get to that, there's been some work going on in the mesh room during weekdays and weekends and stuff, times outside of the times that we can actually access the site, because the site is only, we're only allowed to do work during business hours, so that's kind of restricted our volunteer pool, but a number of people have come through and helped me on that, so I've been, very much appreciative of all the help that I can get. But in the meantime, we've got a couple things that can be seen here. We've got our outdoor fiber box that will run, that's the bottom right. Outdoor fiber box will be up in the elements on the rooftop and kind of connecting all of our antennas down to the basement. In the top right, we have our fiber splitter. So in order to connect 400 units of fiber, they all kind of coalesce down through a series of splitters to 4 single cables, and then that plugs into something called an optical line terminal, an OLT, and that'll serve the entire building with the internet. So the box in the top right corner of the screen is doing one step of that coalescence. In the top middle is the panel that we're going to be having outside that's going to drive the power to all of the different antennas that are on the roof. And let's see, bottom left corner is a little rack mount switch that we put together to support monitoring of our battery backup and our power distribution. And then bottom center is the power distribution itself. So we're hoping to keep it kind of clean because there've been a number of iterations in terms of how the cables have all gone together in the different voltages. So this is what we're trying with this installation. Next thing we've done is in the basement. I got some help here to run a couple 100 feet of mesh yellow conduit through the basement, so we'll be running a bunch of our fiber strands through that to try and help protect it alongside all the other cables that you can see in the top of the screen. There's hundreds and hundreds of cables in there. It's kind of ridiculous how much cabling they have, so this will help ours to stand out, and we're somewhat copying what Verizon's done with their Fios installation, so that should help protect it. Bottom left and bottom right, you can see the effort to get the antenna masts up to the mezzanine level above the elevator room. This is where the water tower lives. This is where we'll be mounting our masts out over the parapet, so to speak, so it has the best line of sight possible. And then in the bottom of the screen, you can see the channel strut mounts that we've assembled that will hopefully clamp onto the I-beams that the building's supported with, and in a non-penetrative way, kind of clamp onto the side of the building. And then I think this is the final slide. We have done a bunch of configuration in the mesh room. So there was a bit of a wrinkle where the PoE switch that I got, the layer 3 switch, didn't end up supporting the version of OSPF that we wanted that actually enables the mesh to work. So we pulled in a MikroTik CCR 1009 as our core router, so it'll kind of simulate the setups of a bunch of other hubs, such as, I think Vernon has a CCR as the core. So that should help us make things more sustainable and connect with the rest of the mesh. And then, we also have the OLT, again, that fiber driving box that's fully up and running now. I'm using it on a computer in the mesh room right now to get my internet, so it seems to work fine. So the bottom left screenshot is that configuration page. So, yep. In terms of what's next, I'm hoping that we'll get all of this stuff carted up into Olmsted in the next few weeks, sometime in April. I'm really hoping that the fiber shipment that we'll get delivered, hopefully in the next couple weeks, will get installed as well. And then we'll actually get the antennas mounted on top of the roof. And then in May, hopefully we'll have that fiber lease online and we can actually get the trial floor online. The thinking here is that we'll fully outfit one floor with the fiber, see how it goes, and then order materials for the other 40 floors in the building. So that should make things a little bit easier. And then once we have that technique down in June, we can get the rest of the building online. So a bunch of people have helped. Thank you to everyone. Yeah, a lot has to go out to these people. And that's it. Any questions? Oh, what? When are the rooftop antennas going online? I'm hoping end of April, beginning of May. Yep. And theoretically, the building can be driven from those antennas, but that'll be a lot slower than the multi-gigabit link that the fiber will provide. Yep. Piotr, you want to go?
Really quick, like, what's the most help that you need right now to move on? Where the help needed?
So the question was, where is the most help needed right now? I'd say on Mondays and Tuesdays during the work days, not every week, but some weeks. That's typically when I'm looking for help, when we meet up at Olmsted or down here on the Lower East Side and cart materials up. Yeah, unless someone can magically make UPS faster, I think that's where most of my help is needed. Yep.
I remember there was some conversation about getting access outside of business hours last month. Any updates on that?
No, we haven't had any updates on that. I haven't tried for any updates, but yeah, that's still, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, sort of thing.
Cool.
Yeah, the question was what is the address of the building? I don't know if I have it listed down. It's 382 Central Park West. This is actually one of a 4-building complex, each with 400 units. So while I'm doing the trial floor, then there will be the trial building, and then the other 3 buildings with separate management companies will look and see if they want mesh in their building as well. They own the property, so we can actually trench fiber between all the different buildings and make the other buildings a lot easier to get online.
Obviously, this being probably the biggest whole building install, from a documentation perspective and sort of process improvement, have you been, you have incredible notes in Slack. Do you need help, or are you working on sort of formalizing some of these processes? I know sort of soup to nuts of acquisition, right, identification, and then install all the way through. Is that something you need help with, or is it something that you've been working on, of just putting together an entire document so that the next volunteer identifies an opportunity like this and they want to do something similar?
I haven't put together documentation yet. I think that's something that I would definitely appreciate help with, or I'll just, write a paper at the end of this. I'm kind of imagining in my mind that I'll have a binder that I'll leave at the site that'll have all the information about the site, and then a PDF version of that could be referenced for other buildings, but I haven't made concrete plans on that yet.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just bringing it up because I think it's a topic of conversation it's going around, right? Is a lot around it sort of crosses over into outreach. It crosses into how do we support large buildings, and it also just from an architecture and a physical layer perspective, right? Like the level of, I think even the level of effort that you put into this would be good to estimate, because it's not every single day I see you in the mesh room, you're working on this, which is unbelievable. But it's no small undertaking. So
yeah,
it's really appreciated.
True. And I think there's been some hesitance for volunteers for other projects because of the amount of time they've been seeing put into this. I don't want to scare anyone away. It has been a lot of work, but it's also been very fulfilling work. So yeah, highly recommended, and I'm happy to help lend a hand if anyone wants to try and take on one of the other buildings, which I think Brian can speak to. We have Belmont, we have Lily House, there's going to be Clinton Hill Co-op, couple other assorted ones.
Yeah, like I was saying, I'm getting one inquiry a week for buildings. Well, Inwood Towers was the last one. I got another one today I haven't replied to yet, but Inwood Towers is 4 buildings, and a similar thing, we could do fiber between the buildings. And, you know, Clinton Hill Co-op's where we were today, that's just enormous. Yeah, so we got to think how we can reproduce what you're doing here in these other buildings, and how that scales with volunteers, and where we need to employ people and subcontract and stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'll fiber. So the question is, how do we decide between fiber or fiber plus Wi-Fi? The fiber is going to be going to every single apartment, so there will be a fiber dropped outside each apartment's door, and then from there they can connect and put a box in their apartment. Yeah.
What was the? I'm curious
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know. I'm just curious because I just don't know enough information to understand it. But how was the decision made to do fiber for everyone instead of like a mix between fiber and Wi-Fi?
So the Wi-Fi, I think, would be a little bit tougher to have a separate network per apartment. I think typically the conversation ends up being, do we want fiber or do we want copper Ethernet running to every apartment? This agreement was signed saying fiber explicitly, so that was what we had to follow through on. I think there have been other agreements for other buildings where it's been a little bit looser, and we can go either copper Ethernet to every building, to every unit, or we can do fiber. There are some advantages and disadvantages to each, which I don't really have a lot of expertise on, but that was what I signed up for, so that's what I ended up executing. Yeah. Does anyone else have thoughts on fiber versus Ethernet?
Yeah, we have a page on the website /building which is for fiber installs, and it requires the building to have 50 apartments sign on, because the 50 apartments will cover our costs for the fiber lease. So that's where we do fiber rather than doing Ethernet. But every building will have an antenna on top, so even the fiber buildings have backup wireless connections.
Just quickly, how many installs are we expecting in this building if projections from other buildings hold?
If what?
If projections from other buildings hold, how many installs, or not installs, how many subscribers are we expecting in this building?
Yeah, so the question is, what is kind of the subscription rate that we're expecting of the 400 units in the building? I think Grand Street is, what, 30 to 40% right now of the 600 units here?
It's just over a third, yeah.
30, okay. Yeah, so maybe that much, maybe more, maybe less. I don't really know for sure. The building has been they have a co-op, or no, I guess they're condos, but they have a board, and they have weekly updates internally, and they've been collecting all of their signups internally, and then they'll be, I guess, releasing that information to us once we're actually ready to start signing people up.
I think the big benefit that we have is it's a misnomer, but there's a network effect to us hooking fiber up to a building like this, where even if we're just hovering at break even, right, the knock-on effect of being able to put antennas on the roof, especially in a neighborhood like this that's, it's really, really difficult to get to, that's where the economics of what we do is very different than Verizon or Spectrum or, any of your sort of standard wired-only carriers, right? There's not, yes, of course, there's a sunk cost and an incremental cost to run this building, but you have a sort of intangible in that the footprint in the neighborhood is so significant.
Yeah,
right?
Not only is the footprint significant, but it's free advertising. NYC Mesh Community Wi-Fi will be broadcast around there, so people that may not have known about it can start to learn about it. We have that link to Harlem, which is really valuable to us. With a lot of buildings, we're paying a lease for the antenna space that we have on the roof. I think SN3 in particular, down in Brooklyn, is having I guess, contract renewal where they're trying to raise the price on us, but with this building, because we're hooking up the fiber, we're getting it for free. There are a number of reasons why, even if it ends up being a low subscription rate in the building, this is still advantageous for the mesh in general. Cool. One more
Yeah,
question?
I think a thing that's forgotten is that the building is subsidizing a supernode, so we're basically getting a supernode for free. So, you know, if we lose a little bit of money, we've still got a supernode up there.
Yeah, and it's better the money is being spent doing something in the real world rather than sitting in a bank account doing nothing, right?
Fiber shielding. Okay. Getting that fiber shielding run through like the risers seemed like pretty tight. I don't know the process. Seemed really
This
interesting.
is the question. How
Yeah.
difficult? This took us an afternoon. I think it
Okay.
actually the hardest thing was reaching around the water pipes just to actually go up and access it. We'll see how difficult it is once we actually have to pull cable through because
Through
these
the
are empty
fiber.
right now.
Yeah, getting the fiber
yeah.
through there.
Yeah, once the fiber's through, we'll have to see. There's also, so once we get it fed through these pieces of conduit, we actually need to feed it up all 20 floors of each wing
of the
of the
floors.
building, and then through another conduit into the hallway. Those are kind of the challenges where I'm anticipating it to be the most.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Regardless, I imagine it'll be easier than Grand Street to get it through there.
I hope
yeah.
that no matter what happens, it'll be easier than Grand Street, where we were splicing and putting splitters at random points and having a bunch of issues with our first fiber building, I suppose.
Trying to fish the fiber through the first sections coming off from the trash chute area was borderline impossible at
Oh,
times.
trash chute area.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's where we ran the conduit up. It worked really well, actually.
Oh, really?
But yeah, but
One of the
just,
things we have to think about with these buildings is that there's fire code and building code to align with, and at least from the conversation that Brian and I had today with the Clinton Hill Co-op people, they don't want people drilling and putting new conduit into the hallways or into the stairwells. They want it to be kind of out of the way where there's, I guess, already a risk of fire traversing the floors. So the compactor room and the trash chute room is kind of where they're putting us.
Gotcha.
This building allowed us to reuse the existing conduit.
Little known policy in the mesh is new member initiation is you have to crawl through the trash chute to run fiber. I'll never get the smell off.
that's how you do after hours work.
Is the fiber lease connection to this building and to this site then going to SN10 or?
So that's a great question,
Oh, okay.
which Zach just stepped out of the room, but I think there's going to be a conversation afterwards in terms of how do we want that to end up looking. My understanding is that there's either this concept of a lit fiber where we just have a jack we plug into and they promise us 10 gigabits of Ethernet speed, or they give us a dark fiber that we lease and we get to put whatever connections we want on each end, and we can say it's 10 or 40 or 200 gigabits per second, and it's a flat price for that. So the problem with that is that that doesn't go all the way to SN10, which is the 111 8th Avenue Google Data Center building. That goes to 325 Hudson. So there's going to be a couple extra steps to the process. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that, stick around after this, and we're going to be having a conversation about that. Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe an informal discussion after the meeting with a more formal discussion on Thursday. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you all for your time.